Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into the powerful and honestly kind of wild connection between what you feel and how your body actually works. We're going to see how what's happening up in your head has a very real, very physical impact on your health. So to get us started, I want to throw a few strange but true facts your way. Like, for instance, could a cosmetic procedure, something designed to just smooth out wrinkles, actually help someone feel less depressed? We're going to find out. Or what about this one? When astronauts are up in space, the weightlessness makes their faces all puffy. And get this, it actually makes it harder for them to show emotion and harder for us to read their expressions. It's a perfect example of just how tangled up our bodies and our feelings really are. Oh, absolutely. That simple little come here finger wiggle we do in the US, in the Philippines, that's so offensive you could actually get arrested for it. And this points to something huge. Some of our emotional expressions are universal, but a whole lot of them are shaped by our culture. Okay, so let's start by looking at the language of our emotions, how we show them on the outside, and how everyone else understands what we're feeling. So researchers like the famous Paul Ekman have found that no matter where you go in the world, these 6 basic emotions are recognized on pretty much anyone's face: happiness, sadness, disgust, anger, fear, and surprise. They're like a universal human language. But here's where it gets really mind-bending. The whole thing seems to be a two-way street. There's this idea called the facial feedback hypothesis, which basically says that making a face doesn't just show an emotion, it can actually create or amplify that emotion inside you. And that brings us right back to our first question about Botox. See, by literally freezing the muscles you use to frown, you can physically interrupt that feedback loop. It's like if your face can't make the sad expression, it's actually harder for your brain to feel the sad emotion. Wild, right? All right, so we've talked about the outside. Now let's move inward and look at how psychologists have tried to, well, map the enormous world of our feelings. I mean, how do you even start to organize everything we feel? Well, back in the 70s, a psychologist named Carol Izard said, let's start here. He identified these 10 basic emotions that he believed we're all born with. The idea is that most of the complex feelings we have are really just different mixes and shades of these core 10. But a simple list just doesn't quite capture it, does it? So to get a better handle on the huge spectrum of human emotion, a lot of psychologists use a different approach, a 2-dimensional map. The first dimension is called valence, and it's really just a fancy word for whether an emotion feels pleasant or unpleasant. Is it a good feeling or is it a bad feeling? Simple as that. The second dimension is arousal, and this is all about energy. Does the emotion make you feel energized, alert, and all revved up? Or does it make you feel calm, passive, maybe even lethargic? So when you put those two together, you can pinpoint almost any feeling. Feeling totally elated, that's high arousal plus positive valence. Feeling depressed, that's low arousal plus negative valence. And being terrified is basically just a much higher arousal version of being scared. It all fits on the mat. Okay, now let's talk about something we all know very well, a state that is super tied in with our emotions, but is also its own beast: stress. So the most important thing to get about stress is that it's not just one feeling. It's the whole process of how we react to something we see as a threat or a challenge. It's not the event itself, it's how we respond to it. And stress isn't always the bad guy. A little bit of short-term stress, like right before a big presentation, can actually sharpen your mind and even give your immune system a little kick. But the real danger, that's chronic stress, when it just goes on and on and on. That's when it becomes seriously destructive. So what is actually going on inside of us when we're under that constant pressure of long-term stress? Well, the damage it does is very, very real. There's this quote that just hits the nail on the head. What is psychological is ultimately biological. The stuff we feel in our minds, the stress, the anxiety, the worry, it's not just in our heads. It triggers real physical changes in our bodies. When your body is stuck in that fight or flight mode 24/7, things start to go wrong. Your body diverts energy from things it thinks aren't important for survival, like digestion. That's the famous brain-gut connection. Blood flow gets pulled away from organs like your liver, which then can't do its job of filtering cholesterol out of your blood, so your levels go up. And this isn't just a theory. It's been proven. There was this amazing study that followed a group of tax accountants.
And guess what? In the crazy, stressful weeks leading up to tax day, their blood cholesterol and their blood's clotting speed, two huge risk factors for heart attacks, went through the roof.
All right, let's pull all this together. What is the big final takeaway from this incredible link between our minds and our health? The bottom line is both simple and profound. Being in a chronic negative state, like being pessimistic or depressed all the time, isn't just a bad mood. It's a major risk factor for serious health problems, especially heart disease. And this is the hopeful part, the flip side is just as powerful. Study after study shows that people who have a more positive outlook, people who feel optimism, happiness, and love more often, don't just feel better mentally. They actually tend to live significantly longer, healthier lives. So what I want you to take away from this is that your emotions aren't just these fleeting things that happen in your head. They are powerful, constant signals that your entire body is listening to. So the next time you feel a wave of stress or a moment of pure joy, remember that. Your whole body is getting the message. What are you telling it?